Hi everyone, myself Sonali Virdi, Assistant Professor from the Department of Zoology. Today I am here to explain the topic Nervous System of Columba livia. Generally we call it a pigeon. Okay, so let's get started. First of all, let me know what is nervous system. Nervous system is our command center which control our movements, thoughts, autonomic responses and various other body systems. Okay, in avians it is similar to that of the reptile system, but it shows some advancements. Okay, like all other vertebrates, nervous system of pigeon comprises of central nervous system, peripheral nervous system and autonomic nervous system. Further, it is comprises of brain and spinal cord, which comes under central nervous system, cranial nerves and spinal nerves, which comes under peripheral nervous system, sympathetic system and parasympathetic system, which comes under autonomic nervous system. Okay, first one is brain. Brain of the birds is much more highly developed than that of the reptiles, and it is largest. If we can see its external structure, we came to know that avian brain is larger than its body size. It is filled with cranial cavity and also notable for its broad and rounded shape. Okay, it is whitish in color and remain covered by two protective manins or membrane. The narrow space between two manins is called subdural space, which is filled with cerebrospinal fluid. Okay, cavity of cranium lined by a fibrous peritoneum, which we called endorhexis. Okay, there is an outer durameter made of fibrous tissue and inner piameter. Okay, and the cavity between the endorhexis and durameter is termed as epidural space. Avian bird is divisible into three parts. Okay, forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain. Forebrain includes olfactory lobes, peripheral hemisphere and diencephalon. Midbrain includes optic lobes and hindbrain includes cerebellum and medulla oblongata. Okay, if we see in this diagram, the topmost part is called olfactory lobe, which is followed by the cerebral hemisphere. These cerebral hemispheres are broad and large. Okay, further it followed by optic nerves, optic tract and pineal body. Okay, and the end there is a medulla oblongata, which is followed by the spinal cord. Okay, these are the dorsal view, ventral view and the lateral view of the pigeon brain. Okay, next is olfactory lobes, which comes under forebrain. Okay, olfactory lobes are always present in pairs at the anterior end of the cerebellum. Okay, that is in the front of the brain. Okay, so we say that it is the anterior most part of the brain. Okay, olfactory lobe involved in olfaction, that is the sense of smell. Okay, due to aerial mode, avian not much depend upon sense of smell. Okay, for a good flight they need much well vision and well body movements. As a result, olfactory lobes are small and poorly developed. Next is cerebral hemisphere. Okay, olfactory lobes are followed by cerebral hemisphere. Cerebral hemisphere are large and piriform. Okay, piriform means it is in pear shaped body. They are somewhat convex, narrower in front and broad behind. Two hemispheres are demarcated by a deep sagittal fissure. Okay, the hemispheres overlap the diencephalon. These hemispheres overlap the diencephalon dorsally. Thus, the hemispheres are very big. Their cortex and the seat of mantle is greatly reduced. Okay, hemisphere consists of large masses of tissues and send projections back to the thalamus, midbrain, medulla, cerebellum and spinal cord. Next is diencephalon. It lies behind the hemisphere. Anteriorly, its dorsal surface is overlapped by hemisphere and posteriorly by cerebellum. Okay, there is a single delicate and glandular pineal body present in dorsal side just posterior to sagittal fissure. Okay, if we see in the diagram, between two cerebral hemisphere there is a small hole like structure which we called pineal body. Okay, on ventral surface two optic nerves cross each other to form octave chiasma, and there is a median projection, the infundibulum, behind the optic chiasma. Next is optic lobes. Optic lobes involved sense of sight. Okay, birds depend much on sense of sight, therefore optic lobes are very prominent. Paired rounded optic lobes occupy lateral position due to the great development of cerebellum and cerebral hemisphere. A transverse optic commissure connects the two optic lobes. Okay, avian brain is often called as eye brain, okay, due to this well developed optic lobes. Next, cerebellum, which comes under forebrain. Cerebellum is very large and well developed. Anteriorly it displaces optic lobes and posteriorly overlaps medulla oblongata. Okay, it is differentiated into a large oval central lobe or vermis and a pair of small conical lateral lobes or flocule. Surface of the cerebellum is folded in much gray matter, and much folded cerebellum is correlated with the great power of muscular coordination and equilibrium. Next is medulla oblongata. It is the last part of the brain. Okay, here below in the diagram you can see the dorsal view and the ventral view of the medulla oblongata. Here it is broad in the front and tapers gradually towards the end. Okay, and it's narrow and remain continuous with the spinal cord, and junction of the medulla and spinal cord is curved, marked by a ventral flexure. Next is the histology of brain. Histology tells us about the structure of the brain and its chemical composition. Okay, so brain, it is a compact mass of two types of nerve tissue, that is gray matter and the white matter. The gray matter comprising of nerve cells, all the nerve cells of the body, and white matter comprising of the nerve fibers. Okay, gray matter is external in the forebrain and white matter is internal in the cerebellum, and this arrangement is reversed in optic lobes and medulla oblongata. Okay, this is the histology. Next is the functions of brain. Okay, olfactory lobes function as a smell, which is poorly developed in avian birds. And next is the cerebral hemisphere. It controls voluntary movements, intelligence, will, memory, and emotions. Next is diencephalon. Which is lie behind the hemisphere. Okay, it conveys impulses to the cerebral hemisphere and act as a integrating center of autonomic nervous system, and it is concerned with the perception of sensation of extreme pain, cold, and heat. Next is the optic lobes, which function for as a sight. Okay, which is well developed in the avian brain. Next is the cerebellum coordinates voluntary movements and maintain equilibrium during flight. Okay, medulla oblongata have involuntary actions. Aerial adaptation in brain. Birds depend upon sense of sight in the air, okay, and require well developed centers of muscular coordination and equilibrium. So brain of birds possess large and well developed optic lobes and cerebral hemisphere, which is much larger than any other part of the brain, and cerebellum, which is large, folded, and well developed, and it controls the timing and movement in all the planes of space during flight. So these three, optic lobe, cerebral hemisphere, and cerebellum, help the bird during during flight. Next is spinal cord. Spinal cord in birds is comparatively shorter due to their shorter vertebral column. Okay, and vertebral column encloses spinal cord. It is the posterior prolongation of medulla oblongata, or a continuation of medulla, and extend throughout the full length of vertebral column. The cavity of the spinal cord and the medulla cavity of the spinal cord remains continuous with the cavity of medulla oblongata. Spinal cord is long, whitish, and somewhat flat tube. Okay, dorsally it bears a faint median groove and called the dorsal fissure. Okay, it has two swellings, branchial and lumbar plexus of nerves, which innervate the fore and hind limbs. Okay, in lumbar enlargement, the dorsal horn of gray matter diverge outward, so that the central canal forms a wide diamond-shaped cavity, which we call sinus rhomboidalis. Okay, sinus rhomboidalis contain gelatinous substances. The central canal of spinal cord is continuous with the cavity of medulla, and it is filled with the cerebrospinal fluid. Okay. Next is the histology of spinal cord. It is formed of inner edge-shaped gray matter and outer white matter. The spinal cord controls reflex activity and serves to conduct impulses to and from the brain. Okay. Next, peripheral nervous system. Peripheral nervous system consists of nerves which is connected to and arising from the central nervous system. Okay. First is the cranial nerves. Pigeon have 12 pairs of cranial nerves arise from different parts of the brain. Here are the cranial nerves of pigeon with their origin, distribution, nature and function. Next is spinal nerves. Spinal nerves of pigeon follow the typical vertebral pattern. Okay, in pigeon the cervical spinal nerves pass out to the neck region. The last three cervical nerves and first thoracic nerve form a branchial plexus going to wing. Next five thoracic spinal nerves pass between the ribs. Following these is a lumbo-sacral plexus which may be separated into lumbar, sacral and pudendal plexus. Okay, the lumbar plexus of three nerves supplies the thighs. Five nerves of the sacral plexus unite to form a sciatic nerve which passes through the thighs and go to the lower leg, and the pudendal plexus sends branches to cloaca and to the tail. Okay, in this way all these nerves are connected to the different parts of the body. Okay, next is the autonomic nervous system, which includes sympathetic and parasympathetic system, and it is much like that of the mammal. It contains nerves and ganglion. Fibers link up the spinal nerves with ganglion and the spinal cord. The sympathetic nerves supply the urinogenital, alimentary, respiratory and circulatory system.